Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's me, B. Riley. You can find my name floating on a circle over there. And today we are going to be talking about the Epiphone Les Paul Special that has got the two P90s and the wraparound tailpiece, the inspired by Gibson model. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about playability. We're going to talk about the tonality of it. We're going to talk about the price and the investment value on this. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've been waiting for another twin P90 setup to come across my path and kind of add into my rig. And when I started to see prices on these, and when you can actually get your hands on them because they've been back ordered for so long, I thought, hey, for the price, you can't go wrong. Now, I paid $400 for this guitar with shipping, and I've seen them go for a little bit cheaper, and I've started to see them go for a lot more, I guess because there's just not enough out there, and there is a lot of fanfare about these. These are really popular units right now, and you can see why. So here we have a bound neck Les Paul Special with twin P90s, and it looks great upon first glance. But there is more. I'm not terribly pleased about this, so let's go ahead and go over some things that I found in the build quality which appear to be pretty questionable at best. Okay, so upon first viewing, now that I'm just looking at it, there are a couple of short cuts on this that kind of create some concern. There's a bit of a distortion right along where the P90 neck meets the actual neck, which I'm not too fond of. When we go over to the neck, I'll be honest with you, actually the fret dressing on the bottom edge here isn't bad. It's way better than you would usually expect. No fret nibs, sadness. Fretboard is nice. Binding has no irregular gaps or mistakes in it. The sanding looks really good. The neck joint is very, very clean. It looks exactly like a Les Paul Special neck joint. The headstock looks like it's got a little bit of a better quality inlay. The inlay just looks to have a little bit more depth to it. It doesn't look quite so quote-unquote Mickey Mouse, if you'll forgive the expression. Along the top of the headstock, there's a distortion in the paint where it was either improperly masked or the paint had some sort of reaction. Maybe moisture in the air is very possible. And if I'm being frank, whoever put this truss rod cover in was suffering visually from some sort of ailment. The screws are going in at extreme angles. The plate is not even sitting flush against the top of the headstock, and one of the screws is actually not matching. The tuners are not all in straight. They're definitely all coming in at some questionable angles. And since we're on the subject of that, let's go ahead and flip to the back. And the access plates for the topside toggle and for the the ancillaries are not sitting flush. They are not actually flat mounted into the body. There's something obstructing the channel there. And none of the screws are going in at the same angle. Every single one is doing its own thing. We get down to the jack plate and everything looks a little bit more hopeful here. Thick plastic, could have gone with steel. Nickel plated steel would have been nice. Would have kept with the theme. And all the screws are actually seated properly. Bridge is pretty nice. You can already start to see the nickel kind of hazing a little bit in some small spots. And the pole pieces on the pickups all look pretty good. I mean, you can always tell on P90s, when you look at the antiquities, you can see that the pole pieces, it looks substantial. It looks like something that was made in America back in 1950 when everything was milled and a little over-engineered. Versus, these are... They kind of look like something off of, a Squire. It's actually got like a really good substantial switch. This feels like a Gibson switch, which would make sense because I've read in many articles online that this should have CTS pots, so that's nice. It's good that they went through the electronics and kind of took it a little bit more seriously. I can kind of appreciate that. The neck is a bit questionable. The finish is gorgeous. It's really pretty. Which actually, we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the episode too. And the reason is that might not necessarily be a good thing in this guitar's favor, but we'll get into that a little bit later. In the meantime, let's go ahead and listen to some noises from this thing and, kind of bat it around a little bit. Okay, so first impressions on this upon playing it. It sounds great. I love the P90s. The pickups are really hot. They're pretty overwound. They have a really good signal on them. All of the, electrics all seem to be in really good working order. It definitely needed a setup, so I had to give it a setup real fast. You will need to set this thing up, guaranteed. The second that you pick this thing up, you're going to need to set it up. Unless you just get lucky, it's a bit of a roll of the dice. The neck is far too substantial. It is a baseball bat. And not only is it a baseball bat, it doesn't feel like a Les Paul Special neck at all. I've played Les Paul Specials from every decade, and I just don't know what they were doing here. I know that that's a bit of a letdown, but it's also preferential. I mean, you got to look at it this way. Some of you guys are going for the baseball bat thing. I did. They were much more substantial and they were a lot more stable for live playing. So if that's your thing, then this is definitely your guy. For me personally, it's a bit too heavy. It's still a hell of a lot of fun to play. Don't get me wrong, and it sounds great. It's just something that you're going to have to expect if you do pick it up and have this thing sent to you. Don't look for the same type of neck that you would get on even the Melody Maker. The Melody Maker Satin, the one with the single coil right over at the bridge, has a far more sophisticated neck than this one. It doesn't fret out anywhere. There are no buzzes or rattles. I have the action set pretty low. I like to play it pretty low. I've noticed that if you do have it set low, it's a little bit more difficult to really dig in on these. Might be bridge placement. It might be because I'm not really playing these things too frequently, so just kind of keep that in the back of your head. I did notice a lack of clarity on the neck pickup. It is a really hot pickup, and when you actually compare it to the bridge, it's way hotter than the bridge pickup. This might be particular to this model. I'm thinking that maybe the pickups might have been swapped. This thing is stable as hell. You cannot do a bend on the neck any more than you can put yourself against the wall of your garage and move it with your bare hands. This is an extremely stable guitar. It feels very substantial. I might have to measure this because it might be the radius of the edge that's toying with my eyes, but this just looks thicker than it should be. I don't know why. It does. Of course, we're going to unfairly compare this guitar to its Gibson counterpart. That's just what we've got to go off of. It's the standard. So what better way to compare them is to put them right next to each other. See? Simple enough. Okay, so here we go. Time for a little head-to-head. Here we have a 1991 Gibson Les Paul Special that I had shipped from Japan. And it showed up in nothing but bubble wrap. So whoever sent me that, good on you for playing the lotto and winning, especially after you charged me $78 for shipping. So we've got this guy, and we've got this, which is our new inspired by Gibson Epiphone Les Paul Special. So let's go ahead and put them head to head and see what they do. And you know, you're already picking up on the auditory difference. Over here with the Epiphone, we have a very, very serious saturation of the signal coming out of the neck P90, whereas the neck P90 on the Gibson is a little bit more finessed. There's not as much output coming out of it, but you do get a bit of that clarity out of that pickup. And then obviously with the bridge, this is a happy boy. If you want to play chords and you want to play all downstrokes and do either Buddy Holly or Green Day, then this is your guy right here. This thing is pretty tough. I'm going to be honest with you. Between the baseball bat and the 6 mile thick poly finish on this thing, you could pretty much throw it in a swimming pool and fish it back out and leave it in a bowl of rice or in coffee and use it again the next day. You know, the neck is comfortable for a baseball bat. The frets are dressed really well. There's no buzzy frets or anything like that. I could pick on the headstock, or I could pick on the tuners, or I could pick on the, you know, the pickguard material. But when it comes to all the things between the bridge and the nut that constitute the mechanical aptitude of this particular instrument, I gotta be honest with you, it's really, really good. It's a guitar, it makes noise, and if it gets somebody playing, I don't care if it is a tissue box with a rubber band. If it gets you writing, and if it gets you practicing, and if it gets you sitting in that room just jamming it out, well then it works. And for the price, it ain't bad. But if we're really coming down the home stretch here, we do have to say a couple of things here. That when it does shake out, I have seen a lot of different guys online talking about this costs too little. And that's exactly what I said about the Epiphone Casino that came out of Korea that we did the review on about 2 months ago. But I can't go that route on this. I'm not going to tell you that this guitar is priced too cheaply. I think it's priced pretty fairly. The finish is too thick. I'm sorry, it is. I cannot understand why Epiphone, doing all of this work and all of this promotion and hyping up this guitar so much, and it is very, very pretty and I like it a lot, would then drown this thing in the ranch dressing of the guitar community. Poly finish. And that's the problem that I mentioned right off the bat. So close. It's actually two different things. Number one, we've got a thick insulating finish that is essentially plastic that is wrapped around an instrument whose sole intent is to resonate and to vibrate. If that isn't counterintuitive, I don't know what it is. And it's like putting a rubber band around a tuning fork and then expecting it to ring freely. It just doesn't work that way. You know, and then you have the neck, which feels deliberate because I'm sorry, but it just doesn't feel like a natural progression, and it really wouldn't be very difficult for Gibson to come down and talk to some of the guys at the Epiphone plants about having a little bit more finesse on this neck. I know they can do it. They do it on the other models. So to me, it feels deliberate. It feels like they are pushing this thing down just a little bit so that it has less of a likelihood of competing with, you know, Gibson's entry-level models, you know, the SG and the Les Paul specials that they've got right now out with the two P90s. It just feels like that. That's why it's so close. They really did have this thing going, and then at the last minute, they just slowed to a crawl. It's like, you know, the tortoise and the hare. You know, and that's a problem with this thing. But then again, it depends on if it's important to you. Maybe it's not. Well, guys, when it all shakes out, it really does come down to your personal preference. It's whatever it is that you're looking for. That's the weird thing about doing reviews on guitars, is that I think that every single one of them should kind of get a stamp at the end that says right off the bat, might not be perfect for me, but it might be perfect for what you're doing it for. There have been times in the studio where literally I went reaching for the worst guitar in the room because that particular guitar was going to give me the sound that I needed. Okay, let's talk about the investment value of this guitar. Now for this specific part, we're going to have to break it down into two bits. You got A over here, you've got people who are buying and selling a guitar for profit. And then B over here, you've got people who are buying a guitar for themselves. And if you're buying a guitar for yourself, the monetary value is pretty gray area. The reason being is that we're putting a monetary valuation upon the level of sentiment that you feel towards the aesthetic or the sound of the guitar, having the guitar. Maybe you had one years ago, you know, a Gibson Les Paul Special, and you know, you want a bit of that back and you don't want to break the bank. Nothing wrong with that. If you are in column B and you're just buying this for personal use, you can go ahead and ignore everything I say from here on out, because you've decided and or gotten what, you know, you were looking for. So, you know, you're good to go. You're just here to listen to some audio stuff. But if you are here for the monetary half of it, the investment value of the guitar, you should be forewarned that because this guitar is not only still being produced, but is actually still being promoted actively by Epiphone, that you're not going to be able to demand high money for this thing anytime soon. The reason being is that if you ever charged too excessive an amount, whoever it is that was courting your ad to begin with is just going to go down to Guitar Center and get one brand new with a hard shell case and a strap thrown in and case candy and a receipt that has a date on it, and they're going to pay the same exact amount that you were trying to charge them for something you've been whittling with in the living room for the last 6 months. So in this way, there is no investment value that is friendly that way. In this particular realm, I would say that the inspired by Gibson Les Paul Special P90 is an excellent guitar, plays wonderfully, looks great, but if you are looking to keep something for a multitude of years, not just for an investment, but just for a personal guitar, I would suggest maybe waiting out for a $700 or $800 screaming deal on a Les Paul Special, of the Gibson sort, especially the faded ones. The finishes on those are razor thin. And those, you can feel them ringing in your hands. You can really feel them, kicking out a lot of vibrations. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it again, that I really appreciate all of you guys subscribing, liking the videos, and I love that you guys are getting into it with the comments. Lately, the comments section has gone from being one or two guys being like, hey, this is great, to you guys really getting into it and mixing it up, which is cool, especially because just about everybody's doing it in a super respectful way. And, we're just here to talk about guitars and talk about rock and roll music and, and make some noises while we're at it. And hopefully you guys like the video, and hopefully you guys will consider subscribing. Anyway, thank you. Greatly appreciated. If you are going to get one of these, get it, hit me up. Let me know what you think about it. Take it out, play it to some shows, hand it around to your friends. Let its tone become evident through a multitude of different types of players, and then jump back in here and let me know what you thought about it and tell us what you thought about it. Anyway, have a beautiful afternoon. Do enjoy. Go play some guitar. Thanks for subscribing. And I'm still B. Riley. My name is still over there floating around on the circle in case you hadn't spotted that. So have a beautiful afternoon, and we'll see you next week.